It was the worst thing I've had to deal with in all my years.
In 1961, outsiders would arrive in the Mexican village of Yerba Buena, and over the next 2 years, the lies these people told would snowball into sacrifices to forgotten gods and the eventual massacre of the village by the authorities. The internet has been telling the story incorrectly since the turn of the century. This is the true story of Yerba Buena and the bloody cult which led to its destruction.
Before this video started, I just was thinking that I want to see the mentality of the followers of this cult. Let's see like what behavior was and why they decided to join it, what was the reason, and what was the mentality of the cult leader also.
The small indigenous farming community of Yerba Buena was truly remote. It had no roads, no electricity, no running water, and was home to only about 50 native Mexican farmers. The only way in or out of Yerba Buena was through a rough beaten cart track, which led to a distant highway. It was upon this track in 1961 that newcomers appeared in Yerba Buena. The two would surely be the first outsiders to set foot in the village unannounced in living memory. Situated at the base of Cerro El Pilon as it was, you couldn't simply stumble across the village. These people had come here with a purpose. Magdalena and Elizar Solis were fraternal twins. Born in 1945, they were only 16 years old when they ventured out of the tree line into Yerba Buena. They had grown up in Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, where they had learned about Spiritism, the religious study of the supernatural. Spiritism is deeply rooted in the indigenous people of Mexico. During the Mexican Revolution at the beginning of the 20th century, spiritualism and spiritism became inseparable from the anti-government revolutionary movement. Francisco I of Madero, founder of the anti-re-electionist party and the man credited with starting the Mexican Revolution, was a spiritist and medium. In 1911, he published the Spiritist Manual, based upon his spiritist teachings in France, and claimed he started the Mexican Revolution upon guidance from the Spirit. In his writings, he describes the true Mexican religion from antiquity, and argued that the Catholicism that replaced it had become an instrument of domination over the people of Mexico. Spiritists believed that the original ancient religion of Mexico had been preserved, its teachings passed down to a select few, with the goal of one day overthrowing Catholicism and returning the religion of their ancestors to the Mexican people. Magdalena and Elizar Solis left Monterrey together in 1961, traveling south between small indigenous communities. They used the beliefs of these people to their advantage by claiming to be adepts of the true religion, instilling its teachings as a way of scamming food and shelter from these communities before slipping away. Emboldened by the success
So at the start, this whole thing was scam, and they were using other religion as a mean of source, especially for scriptures.
of their scam, they traveled into Tamaulipas, to the village of Yerba Buena, to orchestrate something more long-term. They again presented themselves as adepts of the old religion. Reincarnation is a core part of Mexican spiritism, and so Magdalena played the part of a reincarnated faith healer and mystic, whilst Elizar was the reincarnation of St. Francis of Assisi. The twins would slowly reveal the true ancient religion to the farmers of Yerba Buena, how their ancestors had believed that the civilizations of ancient Mexico, that of the Aztecs and Toltecs, had been older and even more advanced than the ancient Egyptians.
Especially places like that where not lot of people go there and go outside. Those kind of places are very much in a sense you can just manipulate those people, because those people are not very educated. Even in my village where I live, those kind of people does not even know what is going on outside. There is a lot of rumors about like people outside, what they are doing, what they are not doing, and that kind of rumors where you will say like, okay, so things like this is happening outside of this village, like especially in big cities. Before that, I was also from a very huge city, so we decided to go live in the village, and that how I like know what is going on inside that village. There are a lot of people don't know what was outside, and they will just place allegation on people's, and I have seen a lot of cases of this. They will place stereotypes on certain communities of people, where you will see like they will say like, okay, they are dirty people, or they do stuff like that, which I'm not gonna say. Like there's all kind of racist stuff. But when I come to this city to live, and I started to realize like a lot of stuff which those villager people have told me was not even real. Before that, I was also not believing those stuff because I have seen city life myself. So now it is similar to this, because religious people, if goes to that kind of villages, can easily manipulate those people very easily. I have seen a lot of people get fooled by a little bit of things. So you can just imagine if somebody tried to manipulate you and brainwash you using a religion, it is pretty easy to do so, especially for people who does not know and they are not very educated.
In the beginning, very little had changed in the twins' scam. They asked for food and shelter, preying upon the generous hospitality of the villagers. Magdalena and Elisa slowly drip-fed the farmers information about their supposed identities and their knowledge of the old gods. The scam allowed them to extract many more resources from the villagers than they were willing to spare. The twins knew that there would be a point when the villagers discovered their dishonesty, and the hospitality, strange as it was, would come to an end. However, this time they planned on staying much longer. When the farmers began asking for more substantial evidence from the twins, they agreed to perform an ancient ritual to prove their supposed identities. The twins' ritual involved the theatrical brewing of a potion, which they claimed had this supernatural power to grant visions. But in reality, it was laced with marijuana. They convinced the villagers to drink this potion.
Uh, Another thing I just remember by watching this video is there recently I was just trying to learn how to ride a bike, and I decided to go inside a little bit in the city. That is a part where I rarely travel. My friend just say like, how about we go there, because there is some food items that he wants to buy. So I decided to go there, and I see another weird thing. Outside of mosque, there was a guy like, you can just say a older grandfather type of guy who was there on and he was sitting on the chair, and a lot of people make a line, and they bring children, especially like maybe 1 year old or uh, maybe 6 month old babies to that guy, and he was doing some kind of ritual to fix those. I don't know what kind of thing was he doing. Whenever I see this kind of situation, I realize like, yeah, how cults works, because in the modern city and modern age you can see this kind of things. So imagine what is going on in our village.
Now drugged and in a more suggestible state, the sober twins would continue to reinforce and convince the villagers of their lies. This proved to be a powerful and effective technique. Every time the villagers began to doubt the lies of Magdalena and Elisa Solis, the twins would develop new rituals to quell the disbelievers, each time upping the stakes. They began with an amendment for the first ritual, the addition of animal blood to the ingredients of the drugged potion. Next, they incorporated elaborate costumes into the rituals, covering themselves in body paint and feathers, imitating the clothing of ancient Aztec priests and priestesses. Two groups began to form in Yerba Buena, those who believed Magdalena and Elisa, and those villagers who still had their doubts. In the spring of 1962, the twins ordained two of the most faithful villagers to help them perform rituals and to act as muscle to extract tributes from the non-believers. They chose the brothers Santos and Cayetano Hernandez, who had grown up in Yerba Buena. Like all of those in the farming community, the brothers toiled endlessly, day in, day out, in the fields surrounding the village. With little else to do, the brothers had welcomed the arrival of Magdalena and Elisa Solis. They readily drank the drugged potion and deeply believed the twins' lies and in their fabricated power. The Hernandez brothers were cruel and enjoyed exerting their newly found authority over the non-believers. With the extra manpower, Elisa, aided by the brothers, constructed a temple for the rituals. high in the mountain caves above Yerba Buena. They erected a wooden dais around a flat stone slab to act as an altar, with a thatched roof supported by 4 wooden pillars. The villagers would make the trek through the jungle and into the cavern to watch the nightly rituals. The twins now lived lavishly, aided by the additional protection provided by the Hernandez brothers. However, a conflict of interest began to grow between the twins and their newly ordained Santos and Cayetano. While the Solis twins' goal was to draw out the scam for as long as possible, the Hernandez brothers wanted only to increase the following and influence of the fledgling cult. The twins couldn't be seen as limiting the growth of the cult, especially since the brothers kept urging them towards even greater and greater spectacles. This conflict between the priests and their teenage leaders would come to a head at the end of April 1962. As night fell upon Yerba Buena, the villagers made the usual trek through the forest, up the mountain path to the cavern. There, Magdalena, Elisa, Santos, and Cayetano were gathered beneath the thatched roof of their makeshift temple, garbed in the body paint and feathers of ancient Aztecs. As before, they drugged the villagers, who willingly drank the Solis twins' potion of blood and marijuana, as they had become addicted to the concoction over the course of many rituals. Cayetano stepped to the front of the dais and quieted the crowd. He called for a volunteer, someone to offer themselves as a willing sacrifice to the old gods. Cayetano promised that whoever they
No way someone is going there to chop himself and offer to those kind of devils.
sacrificed would ascend to the realm of gods to live with them for eternity.
How about you live with them? How about you finish yourself and present yourself to that?
Incredibly, from the testimony of those who had survived the sacrifices and bloodshed yet to come, one of the villagers offered themselves willingly at the very first sacrifice. So powerful were the drugs and lies of the Solis twins that the villagers of Yerba Buena were willing to lay down their lives for Magdalena and Elisa. Cayetano guided the unfortunate farmer to the altar and instructed them to lie atop it. The Hernandez brothers then made quick and gruesome work of the individual. Santos and Cayetano sliced open the body and removed the victim's still beating heart. After their murderous fervor subsided, Cayetano and Santos collected the victim's blood from atop the altar to substitute the animal blood previously used in the twins' potion. The potion was once again passed round. Finally, the sacrifice's corpse was carried to the corner of the cave and set alight. The twins' grasp had become so powerful upon the farmers of Yerba Buena that the villagers were now content and complicit with murder and cannibalism. And if they had any doubts or reservations, none were willing to speak out, at least for the next 12 months. During this time, at the end of each month, the villagers would enter the cave and emerge one fewer in number. Few eyewitness testimonies remain, those that do describe a tragic and horrifying series of events, in which, without fail, every month for a year, a willing sacrifice stepped forth from the crowd and towards that bloody altar.
Why? I currently still can't understand their mindset, especially, okay, so you can just follow a certain type of people. It is a cult, okay, so yeah, it makes sense. But for you to willingly just offer yourself as a sacrifice is on another level, which I can't understand.
The Solis twins had lost control of the lies they told, soon to owe the lives of at least 15 people. On May 31st, 1963, the villagers of Yerba Buena made their way through the jungle to the mountain cave for the monthly sacrifice. The villagers consumed the ritual potion, and the Hernandez brothers unknowingly called forth their final victim. From within the crowd of adult farmers, Selena Silvana volunteered herself. However, just before she reached the altar, finally, after months of silence, someone spoke out. Hector Solis, Selena's, quote, childhood sweetheart, could no longer bring herself to sit idly by as these executions occurred. He caught up to her right before the dais and confronted Selena, desperately trying to intervene.
But she wouldn't listen to him. She wanted to be sacrificed straight to a god, to live in guaranteed bliss forever. Selena picked up a stone and gave it to him, begging him to use it to crush out her life.
They are brainwashed on the another level. I can't understand how.
They struggled, she fell, and the others rushed in on them, knocking Hector out and pelting Selena with stones until she was senseless.
By the time Hector had come to his senses, it was too late. Cayetano and Santos had dragged Selena's body atop the altar and removed her heart. Enraged and grief-stricken, Hector fought briefly with some of the villagers, trying to reach and kill the Hernandez brothers. He quickly realized it was to no avail. Selena was well and truly dead. Hector departed from the cave after the altercation, leaving the cultists to drain the body of blood and to burn the remains. He returned to his wife and 4 children in the village, vowing to report the cult to the police. At dawn, Hector left Yerba Buena and headed towards the nearest police department in Villa Gran, where he met with Police Inspector Abelardo G. Gomez. Inspector Gomez asked Hector to recall as many names of the cultists as possible and wrote them down.
Finally, something is going to happen. But still, if, for example, that girl was not picked and some other person was picked to be killed, I am pretty sure they will never get caught. And that is another horrible thing which you need to even think about. What kind of people were brainwashed, and the only person who decided to raise voice against them was not because he was caring about people, but he was caring about that specific girl. If there was another person who was picked, nothing will have happened.
He instructed Hector to return to Yerba Buena as if nothing had happened, while Inspector Gomez collected his men and prepared for a raid. When Hector returned to Yerba Buena, the Hernandez brothers were waiting for him and slit his throat with a machete, but not before discovering that the authorities were on their way. Inspector Gomez gathered his men in Villa Gran and started the trek to Yerba Buena, whilst Cayetano and Santos gathered their most loyal followers to defend the Solis twins. Police poured into the farming community through the rough-beaten cart track, and Cayetano came out to meet them. Inspector Gomez questioned Cayetano from a distance, demanding to know what was truly going on in Yerba Buena. Cayetano claimed to know nothing of the cult and to be but a simple farmer, but Gomez wasn't fooled so easily.
He told me he was a farmer like all the rest. I have not been a rural policeman for long years for nothing. I knew he was lying. I told Luis Martinez, one of my men, to take him in for questioning. When Martinez stepped forward, Cayetano brought out his machete fast as lightning and nearly cut Martinez's head off, killing him instantly.
Before Cayetano could make it halfway back to the hut from which the cultists were mounting their defense, police had filled him with lead. This prompted Santos and the others to return fire.
Wait a second, did they have weapons? I thought they have like machete and things like that, which was not that good of a weapon against police.
He instructed his officers to spread out, take cover, and return fire. Bullets ripped through the thin walls of the hut in both directions. When the gunfire settled, Inspector Gomez and his men carefully approached the hut.
We systematically shot up the mud hut so that no one inside could stay alive. When we went in, they were all on the floor, dead. Santos with them.
Caught in the crossfire, a boy called Sebastian Guerrero, 14, was shot dead. By the end of the day, Gomez had taken 40 prisoners and captured Magdalena and Elizar Solis. In the cave above the village, the police found, piled in the corner, the remains of all 13 victims, including the charred remains of Selena from the night before. Gomez orders his men to remove the remains for burial and to torch the thatched temple.
It was the worst thing I've had to deal with in all my years. After this, nothing can surprise me.
Upon questioning the detainees, it was discovered that the cult has spread to the neighboring village of Delgado. Realizing the situation was too large for the small local police station,
So they were trying to expand their influence even more and not to only that village.
the inspector called in federal troops from Tampico. 12 people were ultimately charged and found guilty of murder, whilst the twins were held as the police continued to gather more evidence and dismantle what was left of the cult. When I first approached this video topic, the themes and outline of the video were completely different from those of the final product. The more research I did into this cult, the more I came to realize that the internet's modern retelling of the story is so far removed from the ground truth that the two are now becoming almost indistinguishable. We'll begin with the Wikipedia entry for Magdalena Solis. The article begins as follows. Magdalena Solis, known as the High Priestess of Blood, allegedly was a Mexican serial killer and cult leader, responsible for orchestrating several murders which involved the drinking of victims' blood. She is regarded as one of the few documented instances of a sexually motivated female serial killer, showing organized, visionary, and hedonistic characteristics. I think you can see where these stories depart from each other now. Most sources online don't even mention her brother Eleazar, and instead claim the cult was started by the Hernandez brothers, Cayetano and Santos. These same sources fixate themselves on the supposed sexual aspect of the cult, and more disturbingly, hyperfixate on Magdalena's sexuality. I'll remind you that she was just 16 when the cult began. They claim that Magdalena was a prostitute from Monterrey, and when the Hernandez brothers began to lose control of the cult, they traveled from Yerba Buena to Monterrey to recruit her. This seems very unlikely as Monterrey is over 148 kilometers away from Yerba Buena and across state borders. The actual position of Yerba Buena is also of some debate. The Wikipedia article claims it's in San Luis Potosi. Indeed, it was initially very difficult to track down its actual location, but Yerba Buena, Villagran, and Delgado are all in Tamaulipas. Looking at the edit history of the Wikipedia page, we find that most of it was copied over from the Spanish language Wikipedia on August 3, 2021. Interestingly, while the Spanish page includes the correct location for Yerba Buena, this detail wasn't copied over to the English site. The Spanish page itself has changed very little since it was created. It initially cited only 2 blog-style sources from 2002 and 2003. Both these sources retell the incorrect version of the tale, but allow us to date with some degree of confidence the latest possible origin of this online version. The absolute earliest source I could find was a newspaper clipping from Texas, the Valley Evening Monitor, which was dated to June 13, 1963, 1 month after the final sacrifice and raid took place. It reports that the 12 members of the cult were eventually found guilty of murder, and the cult was started by the twins and not the Hernandez brothers. There is no mention here of the supposed sexual aspect of the cult. 1 year later, in 1964, an American called Bill Starr travels to Mexico and interviews an Abelardo G. Gomez about a case he had read about in American newspapers. Inspector Gomez relayed to Bill Starr how Magdalena and Eleazar Solis started the cult in the nearby village of Yerba Buena, and how, after years of lies, they lost control of this cult. Bill Starr would then write up and send this story to Curtis and Mary Fuller, owners of Fate magazine, which published, quote, "True Stories of the Strange and the Unknown." Starr's interview of Gomez was later reproduced in 2002 in the book The Mammoth Book of Women Who Kill. This is where I first found Starr's tale. Whilst it's difficult to say for sure whether Bill Starr's interview of Gomez is the absolute truth of the matter, after months of research, I can say it's the most trustworthy source existing on the internet. In comparison to sources like Crimes of the 20th Century Iconology, quote, "Santos and Cayetano convinced lesbian prostitute Magdalena Solis and her homosexual brother Eleazar come to Yerba Buena to participate in the mountain cave rites. In the midst of this spirited emotional rite, High Priest Santos Hernandez sexually purified a teenage girl, Selena Salvana. Magdalena Solis watched the intimacies between Santos and Selena, which stimulated her own desires for the girl. Santos then passed the young Selena to Magdalena, while Eleazar and Cayetano, who also preferred males, took advantage of the boys in the assemblage."
What the hell is going on here?
I mean, that's some absolutely insane homophobic nonsense.
So they try to portray the cult as like a a gay type cult. They were targeting boys.
Until next time.
And that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching it. I do live stream on my YouTube channel, sorry, on my Twitch channel, so you can check it out right there.